Good afternoon. Welcome to the January 31, 2024 Legal and Finance Committee meeting. We'll begin with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Evans?
Here.
Walker?
Here.
Roberts?
Here.
Sechrist? Here. Strobel?
Here. Next item is adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Evans, second by Sechrist to adopt the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Now is the time for general public comment. This is a time for the members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I have one speaker request form from Mr. Don Stover. You're free to take the podium, sir.
Good afternoon.
Would you please give us your name and address, sir?
Yes, my name is Donald Stover. I live at 255 Texas Street, Rapid City. This may not be in your wheelhouse, but I would like to share with you information about the Veterans Honor Banner Project. I'm a member of the board of directors and very involved with this project in terms of placing them in the street and so on. And I would like to give you some information as well as ask for some help. Project began in 2017 with 18 World War II vets. By 2018, we had grown to 60 banners, including many other vets. Obviously, there weren't very many World War II vets left. But by 2023, we were up to 325 banners. This program has been so popular that we can't get away from people asking to be a part of it. Our problem right now is we're running out of places to put the banners. The poles around town here in the main part of town are used. We have used as many as we can at this point. We've been asking if we could put them on 5th Street. 5th Street would be a great opportunity to put up another 50 or 60 banners. And the word we're getting from the city is that poles are not made to handle that kind of stress. Now, we've been doing this for 7 seasons already, and we haven't caused any damage that I'm aware of. We have a $5 million liability policy that covers everything, and the project itself is right now waiting with a waiting list of 50 people, 50 plus, and it keeps growing every day. When can I get my banner up? Can I get my banner up? We have people coming in from California, Texas, all over the United States, spending a week here, positively affecting the economy by vacationing here just to see their banner. They have family members, grandpa, grandma, whoever, with their banner up, and they want to come and see it. So we think we're providing a good, positive service in recognizing the veterans. And I, as a veteran myself, feel strongly that we need to continue to do this, but we need help. And that's why I call on you. We'd like to be on the agenda on the 20th council meeting. I understand yesterday it may have been suggested it would be on the first meeting of the month of February, but we'd like to move it out to the 20th so we have a little more time to prepare our presentation. So with that, I would open for questions if you have any.
Thank you, sir. Any member from the
Thank you.
committee? Hearing none? Okay, we'll take that under advisement, and we have your request for the 20th, and hopefully someone will be getting back to you regarding that.
Okay, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. I have no other speaker request forms, and so I'm going to close public comment, and I'm going to move on to consent items, and I'm going to open public comment on consent items 1 through 14. I have no speaker request forms for items 1 through 14, so I'm going to close public comment. And then I'm going to go to approval of the minutes of the January 20th meeting. Can I get a motion on that?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Evans, second by Roberts. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Then we're going to go to consent items, and we'll begin with the mayor's office on item number 2.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Roberts, second by Seacrest. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next is Finance Department items 3 through 9. Go to Mr. Ainsley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The first item is, again, just volunteers that are going to be included on our workman's compensation policy. Item number 4 is our November 2023 sales tax report. I'm happy to note that the 2% general sales tax for November 23 compared to November 22 was up 1.63%. For the first 11 months of the year, we were up 1.96%, and most importantly, compared to budget, we were up 3.3%. We'll have the final numbers for the year probably in about 4 weeks, so we'll be able to hopefully report in a month how we finished up. The main point, though, that I think is really important is our BBB, which is our tourism tax. That for the month of November was up 8.9%. For the year, tourism spending was up 5.25%. So tourism was definitely a high point in our local economy. Item number 5, the December 23 Treasury and General Fund update. As of the end of the year, we had approximately $225 million, 73% of which is invested at fixed rate securities and deposits that are held throughout the region, as well as in several federal assets. And our total undesignated cash reserve in the general fund ended the year at $1.6 million, which is not very high. That does not mean, though, that's actually undesignated. That's over and above what our actual reserve is. I do want to note that we were using more than that to balance the 2024 budget. However, we do anticipate some of what was designated in 23 is going to be released because we did not spend, of course, the entire budget of 2023. Again, we'll probably have those final numbers for you in about 4 to 6 weeks. Then the resolution declaring some property surplus. We have a backhoe and a trailer that we are trading in for some purchase of some new equipment. Abatements, we have $78,475 that we are asking you to abate. That is for a variety of properties. Some are properties that the city or another tax-exempt entity purchased. There's also a couple mobile homes that were demoed. There are some that qualify for the veterans property tax abatement, and also some other demolitions that occurred. Number 8 is our engagement letter with Cadle. They are our auditors, and the total price for the 2023 audit would be $80,000 plus $4,000 for any major programs. We do have Dave here, our assistant or deputy finance officer, who could answer any questions you might have regarding the audit. I will say $80,000, though, is a very reasonable price for a $250 million enterprise. And lastly, number 9 is authorization for us to apply for the BRIC grant. I really do want to highlight that. We have our grants division manager, Jamie, who is here if there are any questions on that. That is a significant collaborative effort in getting this grant to go forward. Hopefully, if it is awarded, it is going to provide some funding so that we are able to hopefully streamline our processes on the second floor, and also hopefully save some time and money for builders, developers, as well as the staff as a whole, but and also our fire department as well. I'm sorry. That's why Jamie should respond and not me. So if there are any questions, let's have Jamie respond. Are there any questions?
We'll go to Bill Evans.
I don't really have a question, but I want to make a comment concerning the taxes and bed and breakfast and all the, we see that as such a huge asset for the community. And that just goes back to the question of what kind of community do we want to build and what kind of community do we want to create? What do we want to be in 5, 10, 20, or 50 years from now? And I've spoken to Vicki from time to time. Perhaps we need to create a hospitality zoning sort of category thing, so we place things in a position that they augment our facilities, and we can't leave it to happenstance to create a sense of place where people come because they find support for their conventions and the right housing and the right dining and all these things. And so we've got to start being cognizant of all the decisions we make here. Just because somebody wants to do something and it fills a vacant lot doesn't mean it's the right thing at the right time in the right place. So we have to start thinking holistically and how one thing relates to another, because if we want to be a host community that is really functional and beautiful and people talk about, they want to come back to, they're not frustrated with when they get here, in everything concerning dining and transportation and housing and all the things, or even recreation for their kids between convention events. We have to start being, concerning such things when we approve projects, when we enlist people to build things, and basically we have to have a concept of mind of who we want to be and where we want to go. So we need to start doing that checklist as we go down when somebody proposes something. Does this fit our master plan, basically? So I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Go to Kevin Maher.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I have a question for Daniel, and that's on item number 5, the general fund cash. It seems to hover around $36 million throughout the year, but then in November it went up to $40 million, and then in December it dropped by $15 million. Just curious, is something why it would fluctuate that much in 1 month?
Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. That is because that's when we receive our property taxes. So those are significant spikes that occur. And then just from cash flow, it does start to decline. And you will see that there's actually going to be a slight uptick, most likely, in January, because that's when we start receiving sales tax increases that occurred in the December time period. And so January and February start to go up, and then it falls again, and then in May it'll go up because of property tax, and then it'll fall, and then by late July, August, it'll start to rise again because of the summer sales tax. So it does fluctuate. Our cash flow is not a consistent, easy. It is usually for utilities, other than for water, but for wastewater and sanitation, it's pretty consistent. But general fund, because it's so heavy on property tax and sales tax, it definitely fluctuates.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go to Lindsay Sechrist.
Thank you, Chair. I was just curious. I know my question is on item number 9. I was curious why we haven't updated our fire codes since 2003. This includes the most recent 2024 fire code. And thank you. I don't know if Chip.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Chip Primus, Rep City Division Chief, Fire and Life Safety. It's in 2003 we had my predecessor had great foresight, and as he was doing the code and amending the code, and what he did was things that he put in there were keeping up with the changes and the new amendments every year. 3 years, the code comes out with a new set. So at that time, every time a code set would come out, they'd review it, and the things that we had in our 2003 as amendments were coming in the code. So that's why they're the 2003, and we're going to the 2024. Just because there's chapters in there that deal with energy storage, backup generators, solar panels. There's getting to be more chapters in there that we weren't covering in the 2003. And it makes it easier for the engineers and the developers to work with the more current code. They have a digital code set where the 2003, they're probably working on paper still, not a lot of digital stuff. So, and I'm seeing that through my office too. So hopefully I know it'll make things more efficient and for the community too.
So many of the 2003 fire code ordinances that we follow have amendments that reflect what is already in the 2024 International Fire Code? Am I to understand that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, many of the ones that were, the amendments that were in the 2024, or the 2023 code, which is under ordinance adopted by, is covered under the 2024. But there's many more areas in there.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I suppose my final question would just be, if we happen to not receive grant funds to support this, would we then see another item in the future that might adopt the 2024 International Fire Code, or is this associated specifically with this additional cost?
What we're planning on is going through with the 2024 code, if we get the grant or not. This was just an opportunity, and I have to give a shout out to my team member. He found this code, and then the grant office, they've done an amazing job, and they actually pushed this through. It's actually $2 million that the state gets. It's use it or lose it, and we're the only ones that reached out in the whole state to go after this, and it'll make everything more fluid upstairs and easier for the architects, engineers.
Yes, generally I'm in support of all the components of this grant. I thought moving into a modern age of business, it's important. So appreciate the update. Thank you.
Any other comments from the committee?
Motion to approve 3 through 9.
Second.
Motion by Roberts, second by Evans to approve consent items 3 through 9. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Go on to number 10, to the Police Department. Chief Hedrick?
Thank you, Chair. This is just a continuation of a program that we've had in place since 1997 through the Department of Justice. And the requirement of the program is that local law enforcement like us participates in a criminal case where forfeiture is a result. We've participated in several cases, helping the federal agencies with several large investigations over the years, and this funding is a result of that. Historically, we've used some of this funding for things like unexpected canine expenses, high-level expensive lab equipment at our evidence lab. And before using any of these funds, we, of course, partner up with our friends at Finance to make sure we're going about it the right way.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the chief? Can I get a motion for number 10?
Second.
Motion to approve by Roberts, second by Sechrist. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Go on to Fire Department. Consent items 11 through 14. Does anybody want to pull anything, or do you want to have any explanation from, would it be you again? Oh, okay.
It'd be me.
All right.
So 11, 12, and 13 are just replacing staff vehicles and adding an additional one. Our staff vehicles are showing their age. We got a few of them, and the maintenance costs are increasing on them. So we're looking at replacing them with an Expedition Max, an F-150, and an Explorer, just to give us an updated staff fleet. Item number 14 is the HLS grant. We've been very fortunate in the last few years of receiving funds from this grant, and this year we're putting in, we usually use it for our specialty stations. So the 3 specialty stations are our light rescue, our heavy rescue, and our hazmat. So this year we're putting in for some new lift bags, a couple of chemical and radiological detectors, and then some trench rescue. They're called panels that we put in a trench and help secure the trench if one collapses. So this is just all updated equipment that some of it's aging out, and we're looking to apply for this grant to help us replace some of it.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on 11 through 14 from the committee?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion approved by Sechrist, second by Evans to approve 11 through 14. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the end of the consent calendar. Now we'll move on to non-consent items 15 through 17. I will open public comment on the non-consent items 15 through 17. I have no speaker request forms. I'm going to close public comment, and now we'll go on to item number 15. We'll go to the Public Works Department for introduction and first reading of ordinance number 6599, an ordinance to revise the renewal date of sewer, water, and trenching licenses by amending section 13.24.040.B of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Mr. Tech?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's nothing more to this ordinance amendment than it says on the agenda item. We're adjusting the dates of the renewals of licenses because the state of South Dakota changed their dates of renewals. So in order to match up with the state and to make it easier for the sewer and water licensees to not forget that they have to renew both with the state and the city, we've made those dates work together better. So that's the reason for the ordinance amendment.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Or go to Bill Evans.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what exactly, as I looked at that, what exactly are they required for certification? What do they require? Training? Do they require the right equipment? What all's involved?
Well, there's a couple of things. The first thing is they do have to have a state license. The state license program for contractors, I don't know exactly what that entails, but that is one of the items required to be licensed in the city. The licensees in the city have to take an exam, have to take and pass an exam based on our code, and then they are licensed.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Roberts and a second by Evans. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is number 16, Finance Department. Acknowledged presentation by Jamie Tennis and approve recommended changes to the city's uniform grant guidance policies and procedures. And Jamie is at the ready.
Hello, thank you guys. Jamie Tennis, Grants Division Manager. Today I'm going to give you an update because we are just about at our 1-year anniversary for the introduction of this new division here at the city. It was created and I started on February 6th. Of course, there was a lot of conversation building up to it that started well before I got here, but that's when things really ramped up. It was created to help the city secure additional resources to help offset our everyday costs. It is staffed by myself as well as Katie, and we're so in sync that we even color matched and we didn't plan it. That's how we are. And so we are the Grants Division managers, or the Grants Division, I mean. So the numbers, because I know that's what everybody really wants to know right off the bat. So over this last year, we applied for 18 grants, totaling over $34 million. We've been awarded 6 at $4.6 million. So, return on investment. You guys invested in the Grants Division. For every dollar you've invested in us, we've brought you $24 to the city. And we're not done. There is still $15 million of that original $34 million we applied for that is pending, that we should hopefully hear from soon. Oh, I forgot to premise, all of the numbers and data I'm sharing is really focused solely on the grants that the Grants Division was a part of. It's really been amazing the way it's worked here at the city, where there are some departments that either have their own grant writing staff, like the airport has specialists, PD has people. There's also grants that different departments have been doing regularly. So fire department, their Homeland Security, they've been doing for years, very successful. They didn't need our help. We don't need to give them our help. So these numbers are strictly focused solely on what the Grants Division did. In addition to the hard dollars that we're bringing in, there's a lot of value add that our division brings. So front-end grant services, things like just having a wish list, talking to all of the different departments and their staff and hearing what they need, what they want, having that at the ready so that if we see grant opportunities that align, we're able to meet and get that going right away. Also, research and data and stats, like we have to know that for the grant, so we are a natural place for that to live. So if you ever need any stats on anything, give us a call. We probably have them at our fingertips. One of the biggest things that I think the Grants Division helps with is a lot of time saving for other city staff, because we are the ones that can look at all of the new grant opportunities, proactively seeking out what's available and weeding through and determining what fits, what doesn't, so that your staff don't have to waste their time. And so, yeah, finding new opportunities and filtering. Of course, we offer grant management help if departments or divisions need it. So things like program management, program reporting, fiscal management. And then fostering collaborations. As you heard at the BRIC grant earlier that you discussed, this is a collaborative effort. We had everybody at the table from community development, the fire department, public works, IT. We're all at the table to talk about that grant opportunity. And more grants are like that, where it has to be a collaborative effort. So helping foster collaborations just within the city, as well as with our partners, and especially a lot of the committees. So think of things like the Disability Committee or the Sustainability Committee, working with them, understanding their wishes too, and helping support that work. There's not grants that are going to fit with the city every time, every way. And so a lot of times if we find things that look like they would be positive for our community, but just don't make sense for the city to apply for, we send those out to our partners. So we'll send grants out, you know, if I see some that are arts focused, to the Doll or the Journey, or, you know, child care ones, we'll send out to nonprofits. And then just being a liaison for anybody who wants to help work with the city, because the city is a big beast, so helping them know where to go. So a little bit about the process for the Grants Division. I mentioned that we do a lot of that initial looking at and filtering through different grant opportunities. And so a lot of that research, looking at the basics, does it align with what the city, can a city even apply? Like, does it align with our stuff on the face value? What are the strings? If it kind of passes all that, then we go into a vetting process. That's where we actually share it with the staff who would be impacted and really dig deep into understanding, does it align? Is it what we need? Does it help them? Does it align with their priorities, our priorities? Do we have the capacity to handle the grant if we get it? All of those worked out in that process. If it all looks good, of course, then it starts going through approvals, and then ultimately we write it and submit it. So just to give you an idea of how that breaks down, so out of all the grants that we see, and we see a ton of them coming across our desk all the time, roughly 79% we take a look at, recognize they're not a great fit. Moving on. Then another 16% seem like they are positive, seem like they do align with what we need. We go, we meet with staff, have some conversations, but you know what? Through those conversations, we recognize, nope, it's not the right fit. 16% then just only make it to that step. It's only about 5% that actually get written. And I tell you that so that you know we aren't just going after any dollar that's out there. We're being very strategic and recognizing, what does our city need, what does our city have the capacity to handle, and what aligns with our priorities, and that's what we're writing. I'm happy to say that we are working with every department here at the city, as well as many community partners. Just to give you an idea of what that looks like based on the numbers, so the grants that we have vetted with the staff and then ultimately wrote, you can see on this grant how it breaks down with all of the various departments. And then here you can see how it breaks down with the actual amount that was requested. So, very collaborative process. I also just wanted to point out the breakdown of what types of grants we've been writing. There were no expectations up front. No, this was never like a guideline. It's just how the numbers have fallen out. So about 25% have been planning grants, 35% covered equipment, and 40% covered implementation or construction. So I mentioned early on, we got over $4.6 million. Here's a breakdown of those that we got. It is a nice mix of some federal dollars and some state dollars. Lots of exciting things, everything from sewer extensions in areas of town that are rapidly growing and developing, to safe streets, where we are looking at how we can mitigate fatalities on our streets, urban forestry, planting more trees and beautifying North Rapid, even mental wellness resources for staff. So a nice wide variety of things that we've been able to secure. And 55% then of what we applied for that we've heard from, we received, which is really exciting. I will tell you that that is, I don't want us to hold us to this number because there's a lot of variables that go into if we are actually awarded grants. There's a lot that we can control, and that's part of the beauty of the grants division is that we can work very closely with staff and make sure that we're writing the strongest application we can for the city. But then there's a ton of things outside of our control. For example, we wrote one grant for solid waste, and it was a federal grant, and they had gotten 334 applications and only funded 25. So, and sometimes we're dealing with like astronomical odds, but we got to try. We've also not gotten everything that we have tried. So there's 5 grants that we know of that we haven't gotten. And again, a wide variety, things like Sheridan Lake Road, solid waste, that's one I was just talking about, electric vehicles, recycling, library resources. I'm going to take a moment to clarify one element on the Sheridan Lake Road grant because I know there's been a lot of conversations about that work. That was a grant to the state for infrastructure to support affordable housing. And so as a team, staff got together and identified what potential projects might be a good fit. Sheridan Lake Road, and there were other grant parameters like timeliness of when you were getting it done, shovel ready, those sorts of things that went into that conversation. And so at the end of the day, because of the expansion of Sheridan Lake Road to support all of the development happening on that side of town, we decided that that seems like it would be a good project. But we recognized that there wasn't a direct link to affordable housing. So, staff proactively reached out to the state, set up a meeting with the CEO of South Dakota Housing and the program officer for this funding, and met and explained the concept, what we were thinking of and why, to get direction from them of if we should apply or not. And we were told, yes, you should apply. And that is why we applied. So, just to set a little bit of record straight on that. We also have over $15 million pending. And again, wide variety of things like affordable housing, sewer improvements, park improvements, fire stuff, beautification projects, all kinds of cool things. So hopefully we'll be hearing about a lot of these soon. And then we've got really exciting ones that we're working on that we've either submitted last month or this month, including a regional water pump booster station, again, to help support the development of affordable housing in a rapidly growing area of Rapid City. Things like the Railroad Quiet Zone. I'm a little bummed. Yesterday during Public Works Committee meeting, the train came through right at the perfect time. It didn't today, but oh, you guys know. Street improvements, fire stuff, security at the monument, and then, of course, the BRIC program that we just talked about with improved processes for building permits and code enforcement. So, with all new things, there is, of course, opportunities to improve our processes. So that's one of the things that I'm going to talk through right now. And then actually part of your agenda item is I've made formal recommendations to improve our grant guidelines. And then those would be going to council on Monday if you recommend. So one of the challenges, timing. Timing challenges have been a big challenge. So you can kind of see the workflow of when we decide to apply, then it's got to go to the department for approval. The attorney's office reviews it to make sure there's no strings or hidden things that we need to know. We write it. Final approval by the department. If it needs a resolution, that's another step. The mayor needs to look it over. Then it's got to come to you guys. Then it's got to go to council. And then we can finally apply. If things flow, and I'll tell you that they rarely go quite that easily. There's usually some back and forth in there as we work through some of the kinks. But it can go about 10 weeks to write it through this process. The issue that is that most grants are only going to give you about an 8-week notice between letting you know the grant's available and when it's due. So we've had to really work hard to work through this process. Along the same lines, so the BRIC grant that you guys just looked at is due on the 15th to the state. So it's got to go to council on the 5th. Comes to you guys on the 31st. I have to get it to the attorney's office to get it on your agenda on the 25th. that is 3 weeks before it's actually due that I've got to get you guys the information. Lo and behold, we don't have all the details worked out. And that's why things like that grant, I can't give you the exact dollar figure for what we're going to apply for. I know you've looked at other ones that I've brought forth. Same situation where I can just say, you know what, we're going to apply for 1 to 20 million. And that's kind of all we can give you because of the timing of things. I'd also caution to say that the process is a little inefficient. So I mentioned you guys looked at 18 applications. Only 6 were awarded so far. That's 67% of them that, like, you didn't necessarily have to look at. It was kind of a waste of your time unless we get it. And then there's some gray areas. So our current guidelines state that council only approves federal grants. What about state grants that originate from the feds? Technically, that BRIC grant is a state grant. It's going to the feds for FEMA, but it's a state grant. It's going to have a tremendous impact on our operations, our budget. The way it's written right now, it's kind of gray area if it actually had to come to you guys or not. So because of all of those kind of areas of concern, we're recommending the following improvements to the process to address these weaknesses. So, and I need to say that this only still applies to those entities that don't have their own authority or board. So the airport still would keep their same process, the monument, the library, they go to their boards. But everybody else, changing our process slightly so that you guys, council, would get a monthly grant report so you always know what we're working on. You'll know if it's something that you have concerns about, red flags, any of that, you could reach out to us anytime to get more information. We continue to implement and strengthen our internal vetting protocols to ensure that all grants align with city needs and our capacity, and they don't have onerous requirements or strings. I shared with you that data earlier. We are not just going after willy-nilly any grant that's out there. We are being extremely strategic in what we go after. We have the city's best interests at heart. And then when, not if, but when we're awarded, that's when they come to council for approval to accept. And the beauty of that is at that moment in time, we have the full grant application, so you know exactly what we said we'd do. You'd have the grant contract, so you'd know exactly what we're obligated to do. And you could make a fully informed decision then on if we should accept the award or not. And at that point, if we didn't want to accept it, that would be an action you could take. So, what does the future hold for the grants division? You know, based on what I've shared today, I think that there's opportunities to improve our processes. We will definitely be writing stronger grants because as we've written grants, we get feedback on them and then we can turn around and write them even stronger. And then better opportunities just as we continue to learn more and more about what the city needs, what our community wants, what our divisions have capacity for, we can just bring all those together to have even stronger, better opportunities. But then I'd also then turn that to you guys and ask what you would see for the future of the grants division. And with that, any questions?
Okay, go to Kevin Maher.
Jamie, I have 2 questions. The first one has to do with the Sharon Lake Road $5 million. So after that was denied, I thought we had some developers that put in some requests for that money for affordable housing.
Yes.
Were they awarded that money?
Yes, a couple of them were awarded already, and then there are some that are pending that we'll probably, hopefully, hear next month at their board meeting.
So we're probably going to get the same amount of money as Sioux Falls got.
We're going to get a little bit less. Sioux Falls was able to get another application or 2 in there.
Okay. Then my next question is, you mentioned strings attached quite a bit, and it would be hard for the council to vote not to accept a grant that you've gotten approved, but sometimes grants are available that may run out in 3 years, and then all of a sudden the city gets stuck, or we're not going to get rid of the people or the process.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have some guidelines that you would use to try to avoid that?
Yeah, well, what we would do is that is always a part of the conversation when we meet with the staff to identify, like, here are your obligations. And so sustaining the program after the grant period is always a vital question that's asked. And then we always have to have a plan of what that looks like, whether if the program is going to go away or if it is going to be incorporated into regular city operations. Like, there will always be a plan for that, and that can be part of that information that we share with you when you're making those decisions.
Okay, thank you.
Go to Bill Evans.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to make a comment and ask a question. First of all, well done. It's great to see that in the first year you hit the job running, and we're not waiting around to see results. The investment has obviously shown great returns. And so congratulations to you guys for this. And I wish my stock funds would provide returns like this. But the question is, and your department is such a minuscule chunk of our city budget, and look what it's doing. My question for you is, if you had a bigger staff, could we see more returns like that coming in? And is this kind of investment we should make because it pays off so well?
I think that there is some opportunity that we could grow and get some additional opportunities. There's a finite amount of growth, though. I mean, there's only so many grants that are out there. So I could see us growing by a couple of staff and could still see increased return on investments, but there will be an opportunity where that, again, there's only so many grants. Now, on the flip side, the more grants we get, the more management that takes and reporting and all of those pieces. And so that's also a role that the grants division is playing and would have to probably play more of. And so there would be a little bit of growth on that end as well.
Well, make sure you let us know what we need to make your job easier and better. Thank you.
I will do that.
Go back to Lindsay Sechrist.
Thank you, Chair. Jamie, Katie, thank you so much for your efforts. Your return on investments, very impressive. We're lucky to have you on staff. I especially love the collaborative efforts and the strategic alignment to our priorities. I think that's really important. I did have a couple questions. I guess one, I don't know if maybe more comment than question, but on the housing infrastructure state grant, it does require that any authorizing project is approved through council by resolution. And so will you be making special note of grants that have special stipulations such as that?
Absolutely.
And then I was just curious, something that just caught my mind when you were visiting with Councilman Evans. At one time we had advertised for an EPA grant coordinator, and I had imagined that person would be housed under the grants division to manage the EPA planning grant. So what is the status of that? If you could just give us a quick update.
Yeah, so we did fill that position, but it was tweaked slightly because, as you guys know, at the same time, there was also discussion of a sustainability coordinator type role for the city. And the conversations were that it would be housed in Public Works. And so once we were awarded the grant and saw the staffing capacity and what was needed, it was decided that that role would kind of morph, and that sustainability person, who's Lisanne Zeller, who has a long title that I can't remember her exact title, but in essence, she's kind of over the sustainability and there's a word, but I'm blanking out on it. But anyway, so she is managing the EPA grant that we got as part of her role there in Public Works.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Any other comments from members of the committee?
Move to acknowledge and approve recommended changes.
Second.
Motion by Sechrist, second by Evans to acknowledge and approve. All in favor? All opposed, motion carries. Last item, we'll go to the airport to acknowledge a presentation of Airport Governance Review Final Report by Stephen Baldwin Associates, and we'll go to Airport Director Patrick Dane.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I've got Spencer Gillette and Steve Bush here from Stephen Baldwin and Associates. They're going to come up and give a presentation on a study that we started in 2022 on the governance of the airport. Basically, just to give you a little bit of history, this is something that has been presented on or looked into numerous times since back to the airport management days of Tory Richardson, and then also under Mason Short at the time as well. When I first came on board, the chamber asked me to also draft a report on this, and which we did early on in my arrival here, and then we brought Stephen Baldwin on to do an independent report on this as well. So with that, I'll give it to Spencer to.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, council members. So as Patrick mentioned, this is an airport governance study that took place starting in 2022, and today we're reporting out from that study. So we're going to have a brief introduction, go through the key governance considerations when evaluating airport governance, as well as our findings and recommendations. So as part of the airport governance study, we formed a governance committee. That committee was made up of 9 members that had participation throughout Rapid City as a whole in various organizations. So we had members from Visit Rapid City, Elevate Rapid City, Monument Health, and a couple others as well. That committee was used to really connect us and promote coordination with airport regional stakeholders, and went through the various findings in areas of analysis, being legal, financial, comparative analysis, which included a review of industry trends, as well as what other airports have done in transitioning their governance model and some of the results thereof, as well as stakeholder input that we received from regional partners, the council at that time, as well as various other stakeholders within the community itself. And I should add, with that, there was about 45 individuals from 12 organizations. So going into governance considerations, the first being the case for governance change. Will the change increase efficiencies and performance at the airport? Will it enhance the ability to achieve strategic goals and initiatives? Will it gain regional participation or representation and perspective at the airport? Will it align with stakeholder interests within the community and the region at large? And will it increase economic impact? What are the lessons from governance at other airports around the country, as well as the legal, institutional, political, and financial opportunities for change and constraints to change? With that in mind, I'd like to go through the findings of the study. On the legal findings, what we found is in South Dakota, there is broad flexibility for changing airport governance. So Rapid City itself may establish a regional airport authority on its own or with various regional partners. Give an example here as Pennington County, but that could be any state subdivision. During the process of changing the airport authority or the governance to an airport authority, there would be a required public hearing before a resolution would be passed. Upon that resolution being passed by Rapid City or together with regional partners, it would then go to the Secretary of State in South Dakota, which would incorporate that new governing body. But before a transition in operation can take place, the FAA requires an application for a Federal Aviation Part 139 Airport Operating Certificate. There are various documents that they would request to see in that application. Upon the review and conclusion that all of the requirements are met, they would then issue the new application to the new governing body, and at that time, the management could transfer over. Financially, the airport is doing very well. Over the years, it's positioned itself to generate revenue in various areas, and we see here in the pie chart that the majority of that being in concessions and parking and ground transportation, which is very important because you'll see that the airline portion of that pie is 13.6%. And this is really indicative of an airport that is established to really attract airline service, right? The more you can reduce airline rates and charges, the more attractive it is to put new flights into your community. So we like to see that. We do know that there are large capital improvements that are totaling approximately $222 million, primarily being for terminal upgrades and enhancements and expansion. And as part of our analysis, we evaluated what the cost would be to transition the governance. And through that, we found that it would cost an additional $310,000 approximately to add additional staffing as well as services and equipment that may be needed to operate more independently under a new model. Our comparative analysis found that over the past 3 decades, by and large, the governance transfers throughout the country are to regional airport authorities or independent airport authorities. And those that have changed have not changed back. So that means they have been successful across the country. The comparable airports that recently changed that we reached out to indicate they've had a lot of success financially, air service, through fast action of their authority board, that they were able to respond to airline needs. They were able to restructure their organization to make changes to achieve strategic initiatives that the authority board had put into place. And overall, the authority has given them the ability to have a greater emphasis on proactive commercial revenue development, innovative financing, closer coordination with broader regional economic development organizations. So in your case here, we do know that you're already working very closely with Elevate Rapid City, Visit Rapid City, and Black Hills Tourism. So that would continue on under any governance model, and we're happy to see it here today. So it's also important as context to evaluate what is the industry in aviation and airports doing across the country. And we do know that there's a lot of uncertainty regarding federal funding for airport development. And as we know that there's a lot of infrastructure needs in airports across the country as well as here. And that's placing more of an emphasis on self-sufficiency for those airports and innovative approaches to local funding and for those capital programs. With airline consolidation, there's also been resulting route rationalization. That's requiring airports to compete more than ever before for new air service. There's been a shift in emphasis to non-airline revenue sources. As we went over in the financial slide, we know today that your airport is already doing very well at that to help offset those airline costs. But it's going to demand across the country for airports to be more proactive in their commercial development, and specifically non-aeronautical development and revenue generation. What we found from those interviews through the 12 organizations and over 45 people that we interviewed, including those from department head leadership, is that there's a significant amount of pride and support for this airport by the community, by the region, from the regional partners. They were very aware that this is very important for Western South Dakota, bringing commercial air service into your region. There's interest in a more independent governance model that has a business and customer service focus. They'd like to see continued regional representation and partnerships by the airport. There were some concerns regarding airport finances and specifically the commitment from regional partners if they were to join in on a new governing model and what that commitment would be financially to them. And stakeholders shared that they would like to have a regional airport authority that is not just established to specifically operate the airport as it is today, but to be able to make organizational and management decisions that are needed to progress the airport forward. And through leadership meetings that we had through city department heads, we did find that in large part the airport's operating very independently today. They're managing a lot of different areas out there, but they do have a connection back in some areas as well, being in finance and police and fire and others. So there is that connection, but in large part they are operating independently. So in summary, we found that the airport is in a very good position financially. It's operating very well. And it's been growing so over the years. We know that the aviation industry is only becoming more competitive, requiring airports to have business-focused strategies, policies, and procedures that support that flexibility and agility needed. And the trends are pointing towards airport authorities over the past 3 decades. And stakeholders within the region and community support changes that are going to promote business, regional participation, and economic development, and improve service, both customer service, airline service, as well as others. So our recommendation here today with the findings of our analysis is that the Rapid City Regional Airport adopt a regional airport authority model for its operation. That would be through South Dakota law, Title 50, Chapter 6A, Section 2. We see the benefits of this being enhanced ability to achieve strategic business goals, as well as the ability to implement organizational changes, flexibility to develop policies and procedures that are specifically attuned to the needs of the airport and the demands of the industry today, as well as various efficiencies and processes and practices at the airport that could be improved upon through a new model, and maintaining or improving upon regional participation. Overall, authorities are seen to be more conducive to operational best practices, efficiency, enhanced customer service, and increased air service development. And while the Regional Airport Authority would be a new state subdivision, with that there are still remains checks and balances that are required by the state, including annual audits, as well as open meetings to the public. And in addition to that, there could be requirements set into place through the Articles of Incorporation to require annual reports back to the city itself. Airport authorities are also seen to be in the industry better suited to attract top airport management talent within the industry. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the council members if you have any questions that I may answer today.
Go to Kevin Maher.
Yeah, thank you. My question has to do with, I like the concept of the authority because it gives everybody in the Black Hills, it's their airport, right? My question is, in doing so, the city doesn't have a lot of money invested in the airport, correct? It's a lot of federal money. Is there a possibility of making a name change? And you know, it comes to mind, Bozeman, Montana, is the Yellowstone International Airport. So that, if you're going to Yellowstone, you're flying to Bozeman. I mean, that's, and so we have obviously Mount Rushmore and the Black Hills. Is it a possibility through this process to also become an international airport?
International specifically, or the change in the name
well,
of the
both,
airport?
but like today, if I'm flying in from Canada, I got to stop in North Dakota to go through customs, right? I can't fly into Rapid. And I think that hurts some of our tourism in the summer.
So to answer the first question on changing the name, yes, that is something you could do. To become an international airport specifically is something else. That would require customs, federal inspection station, and there's an additional process that would be required to achieve that.
Okay, thank you.
And
The one thing I'd add to that, Councilmember Maher, is this is something that we looked at as part of our last strategic plan, is looking at becoming the Rushmore National Airport. On that was something that has been talked about. That piece has not moved forward on it. But again, looking at, you can kind of name yourself anything. You can have international airports that are not international. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have customs. What it would take, though, is we have to have access to customs, CBP actually being here. And there's two different forms of customs. There's customs for airline traffic, and then there's also customs for private. They are two different things in there, but we've got to actually have access to the folks that are here, but then we would actually have to build facilities as well that meet their standards. So it is a possibility. It's something that has been discussed in the past.
Thank you. Bill Evans.
I'll just make a comment about this because Patrick may remember I first brought up the idea of airport authority 4 years ago, and I was very strongly in favor of that. I have, however, over the course of the last couple of years investigating, maybe changed back and maybe not so, in favor of that. And I'll tell you the reasons why. Rapid City is a rare commodity. We are considered the most isolated metropolitan area in the United States. We are. You have to go farther to find a city of similar size here and population centers, any place other than Juneau, Alaska, or in Hawaii, really. But in the continental United States, we're it. That makes us a very rare commodity in terms of accessing outside populations that can help defray costs and everything. For instance, Sioux Falls, they have an airport authority, as I believe, and they also have major population centers within 50, 100 miles there that are significant. We don't. We've got to go 350 miles to Billings or Sioux Falls or Fort Collins to find something the same. So that changes our makeup a little bit. So just because other places it works, doesn't necessarily work here. Now, I think the big benefit of an authority is the support structure and finding a larger, area that actually supports the facilities and helps pay the bills. I know in another group I had tried to access the entire Hills community to pay expenses to find the support. We found there was really very little support that came from other counties, even though the name was changed and the emphasis was very positive in making it yours. Found that wasn't the case when it actually came to the support, so we ended up basically changing the name and getting none of the benefits for all of that stuff. And the other thing I like pointing out is from what I've studied, and there are big successful airports that still operate under kind of a model like ours that aren't airport authorities, and that's true. We leave the airport pretty much to itself. So they have kind of the authority, and in many ways they already operate under that kind of situation, that they run their own business and everything, and we're pretty much hands-off. Ultimately, though, I do like the fact that the city still has some control over this, and we're able to help guide the direction of the airport board. And so I think before we act on such a thing, it's bigger than just a change. There's a lot of features that go into this that maybe aren't going to provide much benefit, but might cause problems in the future. So I just want because I've been looking at this for 4 years, and not something I didn't start thinking about last week. So I would love the benefits that an authority brings. Doesn't bring to us that many that we don't already have, and I really think we need to be careful in moving ahead on this if we do that. So I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Any other comments from the committee? Motion by Sechrist, second by Roberts to acknowledge. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Roberts, second by Sechrist. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.